Good evening. This is Sir Hassan Dasani. How are you guys doing today? Excellent. Can you guys hear me clearly and see the screen clearly? Very good. I'm so glad to see all of you guys every day. This shows that you guys are committed, and I do hope and pray that your efforts will bring the fruit this time around. Just give me 1 minute. I need to double check my mic because something is prompting me on my screen. Just give me a second. Right, all looks good to me. So, what's our game plan for today? Today, we will change the flavor a little bit. Today, we will focus more on corporate governance topics, which was essentially uh, XP1 topics. So for day one, day two, and day three, we focused a lot on business strategies and models and pros and cons and all those things. But now our today's focus is on corporate governance. So I have selected few topics based on my experience, and I will first quickly revise those topics, and as we go along I will do some practice so that you can make sure that you understood the topics. Right, so today we will talk about professional ethics, public interest, corporate code of ethics, and then after doing a couple of questions on that, we will move towards board of directors. We will talk about 6 or 7 topics under that. Then we will do another question. Then I will explain to you family owned business, internal controls and weaknesses, and then we will do a big question on internal controls and weaknesses. So moving on, professional code of ethics. So I am pretty sure that most of you are familiar with this topic. Okay. So a professional code. So do you know the meaning of the word code? Code generally means written guidelines. Okay. A professional code of ethics means written guidelines about ethics for professionals. So once you become a qualified accountant, it is mandatory for you to follow the professional code of ethics, and ACCA has adopted principles of professional ethics, i.e. SBA and IFAC. Okay, so what are the 5 principles of ethics which you need to follow? Number one is integrity. Integrity means honesty, straightforward, truthfulness, do not conceal anything wrong, fair dealing. Very, very important. All qualified accountants have to show integrity, honesty, okay? No fraud, no concealment of things, no wrongdoings. After that, it's objectivity. Objectivity means that your decisions will be based on facts and figures. There should be no biasness, no personal conflict of interest, and most importantly, no undue influence. Okay. Third one is professional competence and due care. It is expected that since you are a qualified accountant, you have to be competent, you have to be up to date with all the laws, regulations relevant to your profession, all the standards, everything. Okay, and you work with due diligence and due care. You are always careful, you are not careless while you are working. Confidentiality means that you should not disclose confidential information to third parties or anyone else unless there is a legal or a professional duty. Plus, very important, you should not use confidential information for personal advantage as well. Okay. And lastly, professional behavior means we have to avoid actions which discredits the professions or our fellow members. We have to be very careful how we carry ourselves. So these are the 5 principles which we have to follow even when we are sleeping. Okay, we have to breathe in and breathe out these 5 principles. So, for example, uh, in my company, because I'm the CFO, I normally am one of the approving authorities for tenders. So when we go for tenders, like when various suppliers or vendors, they submit their tenders to us, I am one of the core, a member of the approving body. So many times these vendors, they try to directly or indirectly offer us kickbacks, commissions, vacations, honeymoon trips, anything which can get our attraction. And if they expect that we take decisions in their favor. So what do we do? If I'm a qualified accountant, should I accept the kickbacks, the favors, uh, and take a decision which is in favor of a wrong party? Politely decline. I like that. Okay, very good. So, trust me, in real life, uh, I face a lot of ethical situations, and I have to breathe in and breathe out these 5 principles to make sure I am not, attracted towards those things. All right, this is very, very serious matter. Right. The next topic is public interest. So, I am a finance director of a company. Okay, the shareholders or the owners have appointed me. I am their agents. So my primary duty is to protect the interest of my shareholders or the owners or my principal, correct? Right. But in addition to that, I also have to, focus on the interest of customers, suppliers, employees, government, and society. All right. As a professional, I cannot compromise uh, in order to maximize the profit more for my shareholders. I cannot start selling uh, dangerous goods to customers. I cannot mistreat my employees. It is my professional duty that I also have to safeguard the interest of the key stakeholders other than the shareholders. So this concept is called public interest. All right. So whenever you see a question in your exam talking about public interest, you need to remember these words. Okay. You need to then look for information about customers, information about suppliers, employees, government, society, and community. And then you talk about them. So this is how you handle a question on public interest. This is very similar to something we did on day number 2, which was called social footprint. Remember, in social footprints, we talked about employees, customers, suppliers, and society. So again, public interest is kind of overlapping. It is very, very similar to social footprint. It talks about customers, suppliers, employees, government, society. Right. The third thing is corporate code of ethics. So again, the word code means written guidelines. Corporate code of ethics means now these are written guidelines issued by the organization. So professional code of ethics are issued by professional bodies like ACCA, and those are applicable to the members of those professional bodies. And similarly, corporate code of ethics is issued by corporations, by organizations, and they are mandatory for the employees of that particular organization. Is that clear? Okay, so you can see here it's issued by organizations, applicable to all employees. And okay, again, so if you open uh, if you download the corporate code of ethics of amazon.com or google.com or apple.com or samsung.com, go to their website, you will see their corporate code of ethics. A corporate code of ethics also covers employees. Sorry, let me change the pen. Employees, customers and suppliers, society and community. Same thing being repeated. And when we talk about employees, the corporate code of ethics document will generally cover these points: gender equality, no discrimination between employees, diversity, working conditions, health and safety, better pay. So we've gone through all this list under social and environmental footprint, social footprint, right? So just remember, social footprint and public interest and corporate code of ethics, all these, they talk about the same thing. All of them talk about the same thing, which is employees and customers and suppliers and societies and communities. Okay, so whenever you receive a question on social footprint or public interest or corporate code of ethics, always look for information about employees, customers, suppliers, society, community. Very, very easy and high scoring. Okay, so do I have any questions? Okay, since we don't have any questions, let's quickly do a question on on professional ethics and public interest. This is P1 December 13, question number 4C, called Lobo. This is a P1 question because I did not selected the SBL question. I wasn't able to find the type of question I was looking for. So let me open this. Oh, so this is not a separate exhibit. The question is here. Okay. This is a short and sweet question required. Discuss the fundamental principles of professional ethics which Frank failed to observe, and explain how an awareness of his duty to the public interest may have prevented his errors. Okay, so this guy Bob apparently has failed to observe the professional ethics, and then we have to see how his awareness about public interest may have prevented. So when I see professional ethics word, five things will come to my mind: integrity, objectivity, professional care and due diligence, confidentiality, and professional behavior. And when I see the word public interest, immediately what words will come to my mind? Employees, customers, suppliers, societies, communities, governments. Okay, let's read and see how this guy has what violations he has done. A technological failure occurred at Lobo company last year. Mhm. A new computer system which was designed to control Lobo's complicated operational facility broke down shortly after it was installed. This meant that the company was unable to carry out production processes normally for several days. So let's do some referencing. There's a technological failure and production stopped. Okay, right. The cause of the failure was later found to have been a system specification error made by Frank, the operations director, and a professional engineer. What's the reason? It was a system specification error made by Frank, and he is an operations director. That means a senior guy, and a professional engineer. That means if he's a professional, he has to follow the professional code of ethics. He had seriously miscalculated the capacity needed for the new system and had ordered a system which was unfit for the purpose. Oh my God. So he seriously made a mistake, a big mistake, and ordered a system which was unfit for the purpose. Not only had this resulted in loss of several days of production and a loss of loyalty and goodwill from customers and others, it also cost a large amount to repair and upgrade the system to be able to cope with the actual demands placed on it. Uh-huh. Loss of several days of production, loss of loyalty and goodwill from customers, and also costed large amount to repair. So what are the key messages? um, Serious error, okay, by this guy, and production, can I say loss of production, loss of customer, okay, customer loyalty, and high costs incurred. Okay, so these are all the implications. Now, Frank acknowledged that he had overridden normal procurement procedures in purchasing the system. Oh my God. So this guy has acknowledged that he has overridden the normal procurement procedures. That means he bypassed, he did not follow the organization's procedures, but he was thought to but he was thought by his colleagues to be such a competent engineer, it was not felt necessary for anybody else in the company to discuss the purchase with the suppliers. His fellow directors believed that Mr. Bubb would exercise the judgment needed to purchase and implement the new system. Because the system was needed urgently, there was no time to run it in pilot mode or to test it on site before it was fully installed. When he was asked about the failure, Frank said that he decided to buy the system in question because an old friend had recommended it and that he saw no need to take further advice beyond that. So why did Frank selected this system? Because an old friend recommended and he did not verify anything beyond that. So, uh, override company policies, okay, and friends recommendation. That's the two key message from these paragraphs. Discuss the fundamental principles of professional ethics which Frank failed to observe. So now we know that Frank had made a mistake, right? Which principles he failed to observe? I give you 30 seconds. I think I need to know at least two principles or three principles, two to three. Balaj is saying objectivity. And then someone is saying professional competence and due care and objectivity compromise. Professional competence and due care. Professional competence and due integrity. Huda, can you explain why you are saying integrity? Competence and due care, professional competence, objectivity, competence, integrity by Umes. Huda and Umes are one of the two most active students, and they are saying integrity. I need to understand how. Integrity. Sajid is saying integrity. Right. So I think you understand. I think definitely he did not followed objectivity. Objectivity means that he should take decisions based on facts, no undue influence. So if you guys say that he compromised objectivity, what proof you have? Which sentence tells you that he has compromised objectivity? I think the last para, I believe, in which these two lines. This is about objectivity. Okay, that he decided to go for this particular system because an old friend recommended it, and then he did not, review it further. So he based his decision based on influence of a friend. He did not base his decision based on facts. Very good. Excellent. So in SBL, whenever you claim something, you need to prove it, just like a lawyer. Okay. And then I think professional competence and due care. Hmm. I don't. I think he also violated this. Up to date with all diligent. He was not diligent in his work. He was not careful. Okay. Do you agree? Miscalculation. I like that. Serious miscalculation. Very good. If you write this word, you are done. Confidentiality, I don't think there was any issue of confidentiality. Professional behavior, oh my God. A couple of things. He deliberately bypassed companies' procurement procedures. That that brings bad impression about professionals and the members, right? And all the other things, objectivity, professional incompetence, they all collectively affect the professional behavior. Very good. So I think these three are the main thing. Integrity, I'm not sure, but my, few of the good students are claiming integrity. I think he was not dishonest. He did not do a fraud. He did not conceal anything. He just didn't follow the process, and he did not follow the other of the principles. All right. So not following policies. Okay, done. So now you guys understand. It's pretty simple, but in each and every attempt, there is a question on professional ethics and public interest, because ACCA places a lot of importance on these things. Okay. Now let's move on. Now we are starting something on the on the corporate governance side and board of directors. Right. First of all, chairman and CEO. I would speed this up because these are very basic stuff. I'm pretty sure you guys are aware of these. And even if you are not, you can simply read these handouts. It is very, very self-explanatory. Okay. I want to spend more time on practice and other stuff. So, chairman and CEO. What is the role of a chairman? A chairman of the board. What is his key role? This thing. His job, main role is running the board of directors. Okay, he is not involved in the day-to-day operations of the company. His job is running the board of directors. Okay, and whose job is running the company? CEO. The main role of a CEO is to run the company. CEO is one of the directors on the board. It is his core responsibility to run the company on a day-to-day basis, whereas the chairman runs the board. Normally, a CEO is an executive director, which means he's a full-time salaried director. Okay, and normally the chairman is a non-executive director position, which means that they are not on the payroll of the company. Okay, and we'll understand these words in few minutes. So when we say his main role is running the board, just quickly go through the list. He is the link between the company and the shareholders. He is the communication, he communication with shareholders, example annual report. And this one is important. When we say he runs the board, it means that he makes sure that the size of the board is appropriate, the knowledge available in the board is appropriate, the board is skillful, there is a balance between executive directors, non-executive directors, the board is functioning, they are meeting regularly, they are doing their job properly, there is no biasness, the remuneration, the performance, the committees, all those standard things. Okay, whereas on the other hand, the CEO, his main job is to run the day-to-day operations. So he proposes strategies to the board, and then he implements the decisions taken by the board. He monitors all the department, he monitors all the resources, risk management, accounting and reporting, legal regulatory compliance, all the usual stuff dealing with key customers and key stakeholders, all those things. All right, now what is important here is this topic. This is very, very important. Okay, splitting of roles between chairman and CEO. I think this may come in the exam. uh, Splitting the role. So in a private limited company or in a family owned business, normally the role of chairman and the role of CEO is done by the one and same person. Whereas in a listed company, the code of corporate governance or the listing regulations, they emphasize that the role of chairman and the role of CEO should be split. That means that these roles should be done by two separate persons. Okay, why? What could be the advantage of splitting the role? Because these are two different roles. So if there are two persons, one guy can focus on running the board and the other guy can focus on running the company. And then to avoid kind of excessive power, if the same person is the chairman and the same person is the CEO, then this gives excessive power in one person's hand. uh, so advantage is segregation of duties. Chairman will be able to challenge CEO. This one is very, very important. That CEO is a senior person, okay, and all the other executive directors, they kind of report into the CFO for day-to-day activities. They are scared of the CEO. So if they disagree with the CEO, they might not feel appropriate to challenge him. So someone more senior than the CEO can only challenge Mr. CEO. So this is the biggest advantage, that chairman will be able to challenge the CEO. Other directors or employees can communicate with the chairman if they have concerns relating to the CEO, and high shareholder confidence, as chairman is normally a NED. So you uh, boys and girls, you must remember these four advantages of splitting the role. And I don't give a damn about the disadvantage, because in a listed company, every country in the world, encourages to split the role. Okay, right. Now, let me quickly go through the questions. Perfect. I think you guys are very interactive today. Right. NEDs. Do you know what NEDs means? Non-executive directors. So basically there are two type of directors: executive directors and non-executive director. So executive directors are full-time directors. They are on the payroll of the company. They get monthly salaries and bonuses and benefits. They are employees. Okay. And on the other hand, non-executive directors are not the employees of the company. They are outsiders. They are part-time outside directors who are independent. And by independent, it means they are not the employee of the company. They do not get salary. They do not get any bonus. Otherwise, if they get all these things, their independence might be compromised. So then what do they get? Why the hell they should work for free? So they just get a fixed fee for being NED. So by law, the law of all jurisdictions, they have defined some minimum fees or some range of fixed fees. So fixed the fees means that regardless of the company's performance, they are they, they will just get a fixed fee, and the fee is reasonable. It's not very high, it's not very low, it's just reasonable. So if one NED is working on the board of 5 companies, I think he can make good money. Okay. But obviously the fees as compared to other directors is less, right? So in my company, for example, I am a finance director, I'm the CFO. So can you tell me, I am an executive director or am I a non-executive director? Yes, I am executive director. And what's the logic? Mr. Lawyers, tell me the logic. Because I am a full-time employee of that company. I am on the payroll. So my salary is $50,000 per month. I wish. Huh? And after other than fixed salary, I get $1 million annual bonus. Okay. And then I drive a Mercedes Benz, and I have club membership, and I have medical benefits for myself and my family, and the school fees of my children are also paid by this company. All right. So all these I'm enjoying these. I'm a full-time employee, I'm a full-time executive director. But on the same board in which I sit, there are 5 guys who are NEDs. So now those poor guys gets a fixed fee, and I can swear their amount is much lower than what we get. But then we work full time, and these guys work part time. All right. Uh, Ahmad is saying, sir, you will get kidnapped. Good one. Ahmad, I live in Dubai, so there is no concept of kidnapping in Dubai. But yes, in Pakistan, there is a good chance. And I was joking, that those figures were just cooked up by me. I'm not at that level of salary, I wish. Right. What does NED do? What is the role of NEDs? Strategies, obviously. They participate in the strategic discussions because they are outsiders, they are experienced people, they sit on the board of several organizations, they bring outside experience and maturity and all those things to the board in terms of strategies. And then performance. By performance, their main job is to scrutinize the performance of the executive directors. Okay. So who will scrutinize my performance? The shareholders do not have the time or the skill set, so the shareholders rely on NEDs to scrutinize my performance. And then they focus on risk management. Okay, and the fourth role they do is people, which means nomination, remuneration, succession planning of executive directors and senior executives. So you will have to remember these four roles: strategic, performance, risk management, and people. Now, advantages of NED, extremely important. You must remember all the advantages. Number one, they bring independence. Do you agree? They have external experience and wider perspective. Fine. They scrutinize and challenge the performance of CEOs and executive director. Perfect. Employees can discuss confidential or sensitive matters with NEDs directly. It is something called whistleblowing. And then company can comply with regulatory or listing requirements, right? Whistleblowing is something very important. Whistleblowing means that if some employees wants to talk something about the CEO or any other director, for example, if he suspects a fraud being done by the CEO, he can go and talk to a non-executive director. Okay. Then there are certain disadvantages of NEDs as well. They may lack independence. That's true. In reality, uh, the fact of the matter is nobody is 100% independent, right? They try to be, but there may be certain circumstances in which they may be lacking some degree of independence. Smaller remuneration. Yes, no incentive, and they may not give sufficient time to the business. Obviously, they get a small fee. They might not want to give extra amount of time to the business. Why should they? These are some limitations. And when we say independence, what is the meaning of independence? Very important. The examiner may give certain situations in your case and may ask you that whether in this certain circumstances is the non-executive director independent or not. So what are those circumstances? The NED should not be an employee of the company for last 5 years. Very important that the NED should not have been a employee of that particular company during the last 5 years. So in one of the scenarios, I remember that one of the NEDs was the ex-CFO. Okay, and the moment that ex-CFO retired, he was taken on the board as non-executive director. What do you think, independent or non-independent? Correct. So that's fine. So there has to be a gap of at least 5 years. Then no, the NED should not have no business or financial relationship for the company for last 3 years. So there has to be no, big or unusual transaction, uh, you, outside the course of business, which may influence the NED's independence. And not an NED in same company for more than 9 years. This is very important. That person cannot be the NED of the same company for more than 9 years. And what's the rationale behind this? That if this guy is NED for more than 9 years, he will become very close friends. He knows all the people, all the executive directors, the systems, the processes. So he is no longer a fresh pair of eyes. And then he should not have any close family ties or friendship with executive directors. And then no family members working in the company in senior position. So um, um, supposing I am NED of the company, and um, my wife, she is the HR director in that company. So I'm an NED and my wife is just the HR director. Then I have a conflict of interest. And then lastly, there should be no share in profit or having share options of the company. NEDs cannot have any stake in the profit. Their salaries or their fees is fixed. No bonuses, no share options. Right? Cross directorship, absolutely yes. That also creates independence issues. Number of NEDs. Now, what is should be the ideal number of NEDs on the board? 2, 3, 20, 50%, 30%, 70%, 75% equal to ED. Right. So different jurisdictions have different rules about it. Okay, there is no fixed quantity across the world. For example, I think US corporate governance requires majority NEDs. So the NEDs have to be 51% or more. Okay. I think UK they mentioned that there has to be sufficient number of NEDs to influence the executive director. So UK is diplomatic. They have not defined a number, but they have said that there has to be sufficient number of NEDs in order to influence or monitor the executive directors. And I think in Singapore it is like 35% should be NEDs. So it varies, but the concept here is that the NEDs should be sufficient in number in order to monitor and influence or control the executive directors. Right. So let me quickly go through the questions. Cross directorships. Yes, I agree. Majority. In Dubai, what is the number of NEDs in Dubai? Um, Dubai does not, Dubai is not mature in terms of these kind of regulations. So Dubai just is again, in Dubai there are several jurisdictions. So some jurisdictions says 50% and some says sufficient number. Okay, right, good enough. Now board committees. So in a listed company, again, as per the corporate governance requirements or listing requirements, all listed companies must have 4 board committees. So these are within the board, these are subcommittees. The first committee is nomination committee, then remuneration committee, then audit committee, and then risk committee. Sorry, Abdul Manan asked, NEDs have decision-making power? Absolutely, yes. NEDs have equal rights and powers just like executive director. So they have decision-making power. They have voting rights, okay? So the 4 committees, nomination committees, so out of these 4, if you see the second committee, remuneration committee, all the members of this committee have to be non-executive directors. Okay, do you see this? 100% members are NEDs. Whereas in nomination committee, it just says majority have to be NEDs. And then audit committee, 100% of the members have to be NEDs. And risk committee, majority of NEDs. You need to remember these. So there are 2 committees which requires 100% NEDs. One is remuneration committee and the other is audit committee. Right. So nomination committee is a committee which is which consists of majority NEDs. What do? They decide the size of the board. Okay. They decide uh, that they make sure that the board has sufficient knowledge, skills, and experience. They make sure that there's a right balance between EDs and NEDs. They look at appointment of new directors, training of directors, succession planning. All those aspects relating to directorship is under nomination committee. Then comes the remuneration committee. As you can guess from the name, they decide the remuneration of other directors. Okay, so my salary $50,000 per month and my bonus $1 million per annum has been agreed or decided by the remuneration committee of the board, and the remuneration committee consists of all non-executive directors. So they have decided my package. And if you see, my package has two broad components. One is a fixed monthly salary, $50,000 per month. Okay. And the other component is my annual performance bonus, which is $1 million per annum. But that performance bonus is not guaranteed. It is subject to my performance and the company's performance. So that kind of thing is called variable pay or performance related pay. All right, so these guys, the remuneration committee, they make sure that all the senior people in the company, they have two kind of salaries, a fixed component and a variable component, so which is linked to the performance. Okay, I will answer questions. Okay, let me go through answers. Who decides the incentives for NED? Anish, what do you mean by incentives? NEDs do not have any incentive. They have a fixed fee. Okay, and that is decided by the law of the land. Okay, the laws, the corporate governance or listing regulations, they clearly specify the level of fees which NEDs can take. So while doing question of listed company, we need to see these four should be present. Yes, Laiba. So NED salary is fixed by chairman? No, it is fixed by the law. Sir, who will decide NED's remuneration? My God, I am receiving the same questions. Should not be long-term variable pay? Yes, I also have a share options in the company. What is the minimum number of ED or NEDs for each committee? Minimum number is 3. Okay. Attending meeting fee only? Yes, kind of. Is briefing paper and memo same? Abdullah, please don't ask questions which is outside the topic right now. I will address that later. Who decides the remuneration of remuneration committee? Come on. The remuneration committee consists of NEDs, and NEDs do not have remuneration. They are on a fixed fees which is decided as per the law of the land. Shareholders decide the remuneration of NEDs? No, it is this. It is they approve it, but it is the NED's remuneration is essentially defined in the listing regulations or the corporate governance regulations of the country. All right, I'm done. I'm done. I'm. Everybody's asking the same question. I think I've answered to that. Let's move on. Oh my God, Abdul Kir, NED's fees are fixed or is it based on hours they spend? It is fixed. They are a million times I have said they get a fixed fee, fixed fee, fixed fee. Okay, decided by the law of the land, law of the land, law of the land. Please. Okay, are you guys happy? Chairman has right to vote? Of course, yes. Chairman is also a director. All directors, including chairman, the NEDs, the CEO, all directors have voting rights. Okay, let's move on. Audit committee, very very important committee, and audit committee is the second committee where it is mandatory that all members are 100% NEDs. Okay, what does the audit committee do? Audit committee and risk committee, these are high examiners favorite topics. Okay, so audit committee, they do four things. Number one, they look at the financial statements. They deal with external auditors, they deal with internal auditors, and they deal with whistleblowing. Remember this, drink this, eat this, digest this. What are the four key tasks of audit committee? Financial statements, external auditors, internal auditors, and whistleblowing. Okay. Uh, but then there are, this thing is very important. This one, very, very important. All members have to be NAD, correct? But with at least one member having recent expertise in finance and audit. This is very, very important. Okay, at least one member having recent expertise in finance and audit. So, of course, it's an audit committee, right? Their core job is financial statements, dealing with external auditors, internal auditors. And imagine if none of the members of audit committee are finance people. How the hell will they understand the financial statements and talk to the auditors? Supposing one is a doctor, one is a pilot, and one is a chef. Do you think the audit committee will survive? They will not be effective. So it is mandatory that at least one person is a finance and audit professional, right? Let me quickly go through the questions. Do they help in preparation of financial statements? Or you mean the audit committee? No, I don't think so. Audit committees, they review the financial statements. Okay, they do not prepare it. Financial statements is prepared by the finance department, the CFO, or the executive team, executive directors. Audit committees, they review the financial statements and then they have it approved. They get it approved by the full board of directors. Okay. Yes. Removal of auditor is applicable for them. Yes, of any aspect of auditors, external auditors, their appointment, external auditors, their removal, their remuneration, to manage conflict of interest, any major findings during external audit. All these things are done through the audit committee. Yeah, audit committee may have chef, no problem, but at least one member should have financial expertise. Okay, done. Lastly, it is risk committee. And as you can guess from the name, the risk committee core job is to do the risk management of the organization. Okay, and we will study risk management in detail tomorrow. So all organizations, they face risks, and there is a long list of risks: business risk, financial risk, liquidity risk, technological risk, legal risk, environmental risk. All we know, there's a long list. And in order to safeguard the interests of the shareholders, robust risk management procedures needs to be in place. And it is the job of the risk committee to make sure that the risk management processes, ERM frameworks are in place. What is ERM framework? Enterprise risk management frameworks, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. And then they embed risk management in the organization's culture. They identify key risks and recommend controls. They review the internal controls and they make sure that the controls in place are effective. All this is done by risk committee. Okay. Now, can I say something without confusing you guys? So in most of the countries, there are there mm, only three committees are required by law. Okay, which is the nomination committee, the remuneration committee, and audit and risk committee. So audit and risk committee is generally in most of the jurisdictions considered as one committee. But as part of best practices, because the role of audit committee and risk committee is kind of different, so it is always preferred to have a separate risk committee, so that audit committee can focus on auditing and accounting matters, and risk committee can focus on risk management matters. Okay, so if you don't see a risk committee in any organization, and if it is part of the audit and risk committee, it's nothing wrong in that. But of course, we will just recommend that we should separate risk committee. Okay, and why? What are the advantages of having these committees? This is very important. I do expect a question on the exam regarding why there should be a separate risk committee. In fact, there has been a question a couple of attempts back. There was this company in which they had audit and risk committee. They had a combined committee called audit and risk committee. And the audit and risk committee was largely focusing on financial statements and this and that, and they were kind of just not focusing a lot on the risk management aspects. And there were several issues which then arose in the company. And then the question said that should it make sense if they have a separate risk committee? So we need to then talk about the advantages of having um, a separate risk committee, or just advantages of having committees. So the biggest advantage is committees are more focused and specialized. Definitely. Remuneration committee will be more focused and specialized towards the remuneration aspects of the board. It would be nice if we have someone with HR experience in that committee, right? And then audit committee can focus and be more specialized in financial matters and audits. So the biggest advantage is the committees are more focused and more specialized. More time can be spent by committees as compared to as full board has limited time. Okay, so committees, they spend more time separately because board has limited time. And then because of these committees, there are higher involvement of NEDs. Audit committee and REM committee, they have 100% NEDs, so they encourage higher participation from NEDs. And the full board can focus more on strategic and business matters. And having committees, it increases the shareholders confidence. Guys, you need to really memorize these advantages. Absolutely critical. Okay, very important. You see how I am trying to scribble just to show that it is crazy important, the advantages of having committees. Okay, let me go to the questions. Sir, is it okay or possible that for the risk committee members to be all executive directors as they know more knowledge about the business? No. Risk committee, it has to be majority of NEDs. Okay. So it cannot be all executive directors. The majority has to be NED, and the only reason why it allows minority executive directors is because of their knowledge of the business. Okay, none of the committees can have 100% executive directors. Okay, now let's move on. So we've done two very important topics. Number one, we talked about NEDs. What are the advantages of NEDs? What are their roles? And now then we talked about committees, what these do, and more importantly, what are the advantage of these committees. Now remuneration, now I'll speed up a bit because it's getting easier and lesser important. Remuneration and rewards of directors. So first question, which committee is responsible for remuneration and rewards of directors? Hmm. No, yes. RAM committee is responsible for remuneration. So the first thing is the package $50,000 per month, and my package $15,000 per month, $1 million annual bonus, and all the perks. Do you think it is sufficient to attract, retain, and motivate competent directors? Yes. So the principle behind a good remuneration package is that it should be able to attract competent directors and then retain them and keep them motivated. And then second most important thing is that the remuneration has two components. Okay, there will be a fixed component and there will be a variable component. Variable component means it is based on performance, and performance can be of two types: short term incentives like annual bonus, and long term incentives like share options. Because directors, it is our job to increase the long term value or wealth for the shareholders. That is why some portion of our remuneration is linked to long term growth. So other than my salary which I disclosed, I also have share options which will materialize after 3 to 5 years. Okay, and then this one very important: executive directors cannot approve their own remuneration. How can I approve my own salary? That's conflict of interest. So the REM committee, which is 100% NEDs, they will approve my salary. And then full transparency to shareholders through disclosures and annual accounts. Retention options: how can you retain good directors? You offer them attractive packages, loyalty bonuses, long-term bonuses, share options, all those things. Forget it. Not very not very important. Right. Diversity. Now, this is another buzzwords in the world right now. People are talking about diversity. So, do you know the meaning of diversity? Diversity means having variety of people, okay, in the board. I have a diversified board means I have variety of people in the board. Now, what do I mean by variety of people? It could be based on age. Okay, it could be based on gender, educational or professional background, number of experience, ethnicity. So, um, in older times, 5 years, 10 years back, the image of the board of directors was all the directors are old guys smoking a cigar, in their late 50s, wearing outdated suits. That concept is no more there. Now the concept of diversity has come in, that gender diversity, that there has to be male as well as female directors in the board. And in fact, some jurisdictions in the world have now made it mandatory that at least 25% or one third of the board has to be female. That's gender. And then age diversity means there will be young people, mid mid-aged people, as well as old people. And then diversity in professional background means there will be chefs, there will be pilots, there will be air hostesses, there will be models, and an accountant in the board as well. All right, experience. So you understand the concept of diversity. ACCA is the best example by is Mohammed Altaf is saying ACCA is the best example for diversity. Really? Maybe it's mentioned in their integrated report, or CEO is woman. Or really, the ACCA CEO is a lady. I saw some guy's picture yesterday in the integrated report. All right, we are we are going into the wrong direction. All this is recorded. I will be shot down if we start discussing ACCA's board and CEO. All right. So, what's the advantage of diversity? Why so much people are talking about diversity? What does it bring to the board? Diversity means, you have a variety of people on the board, so definitely wider pool of talent, broader range of ideas and knowledge, and it is more representative of the community and the society, enhanced reputation and outlook of the organization, and compliance with listing regulations. Pretty straightforward. Issues of diversity, of course, there will be some challenges as well. Diversity may lead to subgroupings within the board. Older oldies sitting with oldies, young guys sitting with young guys, females sitting with females, male sitting with male, and the board may ignore the views of these minority or diversified groups, right? Another buzzword is insider trading or insider dealing. It is not allowed. It is a sin. Okay. Insider trading means, okay, let me ask a question. As a finance director, do you think I have access to confidential information? As a finance director, do you think I have access to the confidential information of my company? 100% yes. There could be hundreds and thousands of examples. For example, today we are in February, right? And 31st March is the deadline for us to release our audited financial statements to the stock exchange. So people or shareholders are waiting, and the profit will affect the share price. Do you think I know the profit of my company in advance? Absolutely. I have the draft accounts with me. So if I know this information, if I know that after the financials are released, the share prices will go up, I am really tempted to tell my wife to buy some shares in her name because I have this insider information. Is this ethically right or wrong? Absolutely wrong. When what's the logic? What am I doing wrong? I'm not hurting anyone. I'm not stealing from anyone. The wrong is that directors are agents of shareholders. Okay? Directors are agents of shareholders, and the agency uh, principal agency relationship, the first and foremost foundation of agency relationship is based on no conflict of interest rule. That means the directors cannot do anything for their own personal interest. Whether or not it affects the shareholders doesn't matter. And secondly, do you remember the principal code of ethics? Confidentiality. And I cannot use confidential information for personal benefits. Okay. And also, ethically, this sounds wrong. So, insider trading, not allowed. Why is it not allowed? I just discussed these reasons. Okay. Now, let me see how much is left so that we can plan our break. Family owned business, it will take 5-7 minutes. Extra internal controls. Just two more topics before we do the question. So I'll just complete these two topics. I will give you your hard earned break, and then we will come after the break and start the question. All right, family owned versus listed company. Very, very important. In fact, I think we did a question. Was it Nabi restaurant yesterday, in which it was a family owned business? The CEO was the founding director, Mr. Graham Nabi, and then the three sons were the directors. It was a family owned business. All right. So what is the meaning of family owned business? It means that the business is owned and run by the family members themselves. So in this case, the owners and the directors are the same people. The shareholders and the directors are the same people. They are wearing two hats at the same time, right? So they give egg, or the egg gives chicken, or the chicken gives egg. Doesn't really matter. They are the owners and they are the directors. They can do whatever they want with their business. Yes. So family owned business generally are private limited company. They are not listed. They are private limited. They try to keep the shares within the family, right? And the opposite of family owned business is a pure listed company. And the topic here is, what are the differences between a family owned and a listed company? So number one, family owned business is owned by family members, as the name says, obviously. And a listed company is owned by the public or institutional investors. Second difference is, family owned business is mostly private limited, whereas a listed company is a listed company. This one is very important. Lesser corporate governance requirements uh, are applicable to family owned business. Why? Because it is a private limited company. So none or less I think less corporate governance requirements are applicable. Whereas if you are a listed company, stringent regulations and corporate governance requirements, because you are dealing with general public's money. Freedom of taking decisions in family owned, but in a listed company, the decisions are based on voting rights. The majority wins. This one is very important. None or few NEDs with weak position. Either there will be no NED in a family owned business, or if there are any NED, they might have a weak position. So can I ask a question? Why there are no NEDs in a family owned business? Why there are no NEDs in a family owned business? Yes, I'm looking at the answers. Yes, no regulatory requirements, no corporate governance requirements. So these requirements where you have to have NEDs and where you have to have committees, these requirements are applicable to listed companies only. Okay, so as we said, the corporate governance requirements are not applicable to that extent on a family business. So that is why family owned business, they take advantage of this, and either they don't have NEDs or they have NEDs but with weak positions. All right, no board committees. Yeah, of course, because again it's a private limited company, whereas there'll be formal board committees and significant NEDs in strong position in. Let's focus on internal audit and risk management. High focus on internal audits and risk management. So you guys need to remember these differences, okay? Now, this brings us to the last thing. Extra controls in a listed company. Not found in family owned or private limited company. All right. So, what are those extra controls which you will find in a listed company, which may not necessarily be there in a family owned or a private limited company? So, if I go back to the list, this one, this one. These are all those things which are extra in a listed company, but not there in a family owned. So look at the list. Number one, chairman and CEO roles are split. This is a requirement of for listing regulations. It's mandatory that the role of the chairman and the CEO should be split. Whereas in a family owned, the same person can be both chairman and the CEO. And then in a listed company, there has to be sufficient number of NEDs, there has to be proper board committees, there has to be proper internal audits, and proper whistle blowing arrangements. You need to remember this list. Okay. in mm, in one of the questions in the past, so there was this company in which Mr. CEO, he did some wrong things. Okay. He violated a lot of things, and the question, and it was a family owned business. He was the founding member and the CEO and the chairman, and he did some wrong things. And the question said, uh, had this been a listed company, uh, this guy would have been able to do all these things? So we will say no. If this was a listed company, there will be additional measures in place which you may not find in a family owned business, and because of the following additional controls, Mr. CEO may not have been able to do the wrong things which he did. And then you give this list that the chairman and the CEO roles will be split, the chairman will be able to challenge the CEO, there will be sufficient number of NEDs, and okay. So let me quickly go to the questions. Smita is asking, do you remember which paper that was? That was, Smita, it was a P1 paper. It was called Lysis Surgical. Right. So now we are ready to do a good question on corporate governance structure weaknesses. So do you want to do the question now, or you want to take a break? I need to see at least 15 to 20 requests for a break. All right, okay, I'm convinced. I'm just joking. It's a hard-earned break. I understand these topics are pretty draining. So, guys, so who's this? This guy is saying, continue. Midat. Midat is saying continue. All right. No. Let's take a break. It's 9:19 here. I'll give you 11 minutes break. I will see you at 9:30. All right. 9:30, and we will start the questions. See you at 9:30. Run. All right. Let me quickly go through the questions. Uh, Sir, can you provide notes for all the topics of SBL? Yes, I will definitely try to provide. And I was going through the WhatsApp group, and it's kind of nice that all of you are very active in and trying to help each other. Um but I saw a few comments like reading all the technical articles and doing 40 models and going to the revision kits. Please, uh, uh, you don't need to do that because you don't have enough time with you now. Okay, you need to understand that you're just 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I think 20 days away from the exam. And tomorrow I will talk about all these things. Tomorrow, my last slide would be what to do in the in the last couple of weeks. How do we prioritize? What to do, what not to do, and what should be our focus area. So tomorrow, I mean, if there are so many people like 100 plus students, everybody will have their own views and they get information from variety of sources. So you need to follow a teacher or a mentor. You can't do a hybrid strategy. Okay, you cannot mix strategies of variety of teachers. Something which may work for you may not work for others. So just hold for one more day. Then tomorrow, I promise I will talk about sufficient. I will give sufficient time to this topic of what to do, what not to do, and what should be your study plan for the next 20 days. Najla is requesting whether, sir, can you summarize what is blockchain technology? Good one. Um, I'm not sure whether I should talk about it on this forum or not, but it is kind of a disruptive technology. It is an example of disruptive technology. Okay. So, as we all know, disruptive technology is part of our syllabus, and disruptive technology means all these new things which are coming, which are kind of threatening the old business models. Like Uber has threatened the taxi model, and Airbnb has threatened the hotel industry, and Netflix has threatened the TV industries or the movie industries. And so similarly, the blockchain is another technology which is more applicable to banks and financial institutions. um, it threatens the advantage is that it is the latest technology. It is very secure. You don't need a lot of middlemen in between. But the disadvantage of blockchain is, you don't need any auditors maybe in future because of blockchain. So it is kind of threatening the core accounting and auditing profession. However, a disadvantage is that it is a new technology yet to be seen, and it is thought that it is foolproof, but now recently it is just identified that even blockchain is not foolproof. People can hack blockchain. So this is just a yes, it is just a high level thing on blockchain. Essentially, it is a disruptive technology. Okay. Regarding a WhatsApp group, just the people who have joined today, just WhatsApp me on my WhatsApp number. It's mentioned on the first page of the handout, and I will send you the link to the group. All right, so let's start. Exam question practice number 11. Topic: governance structure weaknesses, and the question here is: Specimen paper 1 DCS. Specimen paper 1 DCS, this one. So I think we did DCS yesterday. The case requirements are included in the task below. Question 1B. You are now reviewing the transcript of the interview you held with Java Priya, the CEO of DCS company, and you identify some key weaknesses relating to the governance of DCS company which you want to include in the consultancy report. So interview we held with the CEO, we identified some weaknesses relating to the governance of DCS company. Required, explain the key weaknesses of the current governance structure of DCS company since it became a public limited company, recommending how they should be addressed. 12 marks. And professional skills marks are available for demonstrating skepticism skills. Very good. So I want to see whether you remember the techniques I talked about yesterday. So for 14 marks, how many points for this question? Think and then write. For 14 marks, how many points should we try and cover for this particular question? Seven, 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 seven. Wrong. All of you who are saying 7 are terribly wrong, and you are just not, you know, think again. Why 7 is wrong? Some people are saying 4 to 5. Yes, why 7 is wrong? 3 marks per point. Excellent, Abdullah. And why 3 marks per point in this particular question? Generally, we follow 2 marks per point because in this question, we need to identify the weakness and then, you see this word? Recommend. So whenever we have to identify a weakness and also give a recommendation, then we follow 3 marks per point, not 2 marks. Okay. So total marks is 14, right? It's 14. And for 3 marks, we divide by 3. How many points? 4 threes are 12. 5 threes are approximately 5 points. Okay. Are you good? Now, this is the kind of planning you must be expert at. Okay. Please don't talk about articles and models and this and that. This is the basics which you need to fix first. Focus on the foundation and planning. Okay. Then we'll talk about advanced stuff. 5 points, and we will also, the format would be that we will always follow a columnar, a table format. Whenever there is a weakness and a recommendation required, we give a tabular format. In first column, we'll talk about the weakness, and in the second column opposite that, we will recommend the solutions. All right. Laiba, my dear, she's asking how many lines. Come on, Laiba. Isn't it too late for asking these kind of questions? How many lines for 14 marks? No, it's 5 lines per mark, right? So for 14 marks, How many lines? Yeah, I understand, Laiva. I'm just for 14 lines, it's 14 multiplied by 5, 70 lines. Okay, just a second. So for 14 marks, 70 lines. Now the problem is we are giving a tabular format. Okay, so then 70 lines needs to be divided by 2 if there are 2 columns. So because you will talk about weakness here, 1 2 3 4 5 lines, 6 lines, 7 lines, 8 lines, and then you will give recommendations in 5 6 lines. So in total then you count all these lines separately. Okay, Laiba, in total it should be 70. Am I clear, Laiba? Now is it helping you? The other way to simplify it is, so 1 point is equal to 3 marks, right? Correct. And 3 marks is equal to 15 lines. So your first point, we will talk about weakness, and then we will talk about recommendation. So in total, the lines of weaknesses plus recommendations in total should not be more than 15. Columns format, yes. Okay, Laiba, this is easy for you. Perfect. So now we know that we need to look for weaknesses, and once we know the weaknesses, we can definitely recommend the opposite and try to have it fixed. The other thing is skepticism skills. How do we score skepticism skills? How do we score good marks for skepticism? I think we discussed yesterday when we did the project initiation document. We change the tone of our answer. We will say, this is not right, this is not done, this is missing. We take a negative tone. We ask questions, why this is not happening like this is not correct, this needs further investigation, this doesn't seem right. Okay, so instead of being diplomatic and nice, we adopt a direct negative tone, questioning tone. Okay, skepticism. So let's see. So are you ready with this? Okay, exhibit 1, background of the company. So in the background, I just look at the DCS Communication is a public listed company. Okay, it used to be a private owned, but now it's a public listed company. Due to rapid expansion over the following years, DCS needed to source additional capital to fund its future growth. Okay, and was floated on the National Stock Exchange in 2006. 30% of the flotation was purchased by institutional investors, and DCS also borrowed long-term loans. Done. Okay, this was the background. Bottom line is, it is a listed company, and 30% of the shares has been purchased by institutional investors, and I'm sure some of the shares are by general public as well. Exhibit 2, transcript from interview held between you and Java Pariyaya, the CEO of DCS company. So now we will read the transcript and see whether we are able to spot weaknesses in the structure, in the governance structure. You, thank you very much, Mr. Priya, for showing me around the offices and factory. I found your staff and their comments very interesting. First of all, could I ask you to tell me how you would describe how your company is structured and managed? Java. I would describe DCS as a fairly highly centralized. Okay. I suppose in management speak, we would describe DCS management structure as a functional bureaucracy. Okay. Whatever that means. We prefer not to allow too much managerial or departmental autonomy for their own good, of course, to ensure that they act in the best interest of DCS and to avoid irresponsible risk taking, which unfortunately has happened occasionally in the past. Anything wrong with corporate governance? All this information is about the management style. Okay, but it's nothing to do with corporate governance. Corporate governance is about directors and shareholders and committees and chairmen and CEOs and NEDs and okay, so interesting information, but nothing about the corporate governance structure. This is management culture. So I'll just move on. We expect middle managers to respect and respond positively to senior management requests or directives, and not to question these unless they are very sure of their facts. This is probably a legacy from the pre-flotation era, where much of the strategic direction was always decided by me and my closest senior directors, most of whom were my family and trusted friends. So this something is that from the previous era, since it was a family-owned business earlier, all the decisions were done by Java and his closest senior directors, who most of whom were family and trusted friends. Interesting information, but this is historic. This was pre-flotation era, which was in 2006, and this question is 2019 or 18. So I might not use it because it is a outdated information. I'm more interested in current weaknesses in the current governance structure. You, would you mind explaining how your company is directed by describing your corporate governance arrangements to me? Yes, this is what I was waiting for. Now, describing your corporate governance. Let me read the question. What was the question? Just to double check. The question was, explain the key weaknesses of the current governance structure. Very good. Current governance structure. So let's look at this. Yes, I can. Please look at this chart. Java hands you an extract of the organizational chart presented below. CEO and chairman, Java. Marketing director, Jules. Production/IT director, Tony. Finance director, Tosh. HR director, Trish. Non-executive director, Asif. I give you 10 seconds. Just analyze this org chart and see if you are able to identify something interesting. What about this thing? Do you see anything wrong with this? Very good. So CEO and the chairman are the same person. And then what about this? There's only one non-executive director. So how many directors in total? How many directors in total? One, two. So this is one. The CEO is a director. Java is one. Okay. He's also a director. And then this guy, Jules, three, four, five, and six. So out of six, 5 are executive director and 1 is non-executive director. No 5 directors, it's 6 directors. Please count Java as a director as well. Why are you not counting Java, the CEO? Don't you think he is a director? Okay, right. So I'll just quickly make my notes. Remember, we need to do our referencing. Let me get rid of this extra stuff. Um, so the first point here is split. Split role is an issue. 1 NED out of 6. Chairman is director. Absolutely yes, Lavish. The chairman is a director. How can he how can he sit on the board of directors if he is not a director? Okay. So all right, let's move on. Java. Since 2006, DCS has been governed by a board of directors with me acting as CEO and chairman, giving me sufficient control to effectively direct the company and take strong leadership over the board, encouraging debates and driving the agenda. He himself says that acting as chairman and CEO, giving me sufficient control and take strong leadership over the board. So he's trying to dominate. Huh? The board comprises as a marketing director, Jules. He was my original sales manager employed by the company who I have known a long time now. Okay. We also have a production and IT director, Tony, who has been with the company for over 10 years. Okay. Anything wrong with 10 years and this marketing director has been known for a long time? What's wrong? Familiarity threat. Wait. This is now. So this guy is saying that marketing director has been there for last so many years and I have known him for a long time now. And the IT director is over there for over 10 years. Anything wrong with this? And most of you think there is something wrong with this. I don't think something is wrong here. Mohammad Sajid is saying no issue. Ah, so what's wrong? Smita said familiarity threat. Familiarity threat is more applicable to auditors, especially the external auditors. Cynthia is saying 9 years max. 9 years max is the requirement for non-executive directors, not for executive directors. Loyalty is supposed to be good, not bad. Lavish saying max 9 years. 9 years is for NEDs. Most people are saying no issues. The Midat is asking, are these directors appointed by officially or by the CEO? The CEO cannot appoint a director. All the directors are appointed by the shareholders. Okay, so if these are directors, they have not been appointed by the CEO. They may have been nominated or recommended by the CEO, but the final approval is by the owners. So I don't see anything is wrong. You see, the examiner is just trying to make it sound like it's something wrong, and most of you fell for that trap. Most of you said 9 years, and the examiner would just throw you out because he would say, or you have a conceptual problem. 9 years is for non-executives. Okay, let's move on. Nothing wrong. So for example, listen, I am with my company for last 7 years. What's wrong in that? and I can still remain the CFO for next 10 years. What's wrong in that? You see? Gender balance. Mohammad Hunan is saying gender balance. Let me look at the org chart. Gender balance. Java sounds male. Jules, Tony, Tosh, Trish. Interesting point. Let me read. Let me read. Okay, let's move on. We also, Tosh is our finance director. He joined the company just before the company was listed on the National Stock Exchange. Trish is our female HR director. Aha. And we also benefit from an independent, non-executive member on the board. Who's this? Asif, right? His name is Asif. We are very fortunate to appoint Asif because he is a very talented businessman and also an executive director of one of our two largest suppliers. What? You joking? Let me read again. We are very fortunate to appoint Asif because he is a very talented businessman and also executive director of one of our two largest suppliers. Shit. So the only non-executive we have is also not properly independent. He is the director of one of our two largest suppliers. This means that he has really good knowledge of our business and of the data communications industry. My God. So what are the issues here? Domination. mm, And then one female, and then NED is not independent. Please, you see, every paragraph I read, I do my referencing, I write my notes. I just mention what are the key messages coming out from that paragraph. Please get into this habit, and when you practice your questions after the webinars, please practice this thing. It will really make your case handling easy, right? This is really useful background, Mr. P. So what about standing governance committees, which presumably report to the board? Committees, huh? You remember committees? Nomination committee, RAM committee, audit committee, risk committee. Okay, let's see what this guy has to say. We have an audit committee constituted of 3 experienced network engineers who focus on and investigate internal control and quality failures when they arise. Internal control and quality failures. To promote more independence, we have also appointed a non-executive director as chairman on this committee, who is a former compliance officer at an airport whose background is in air traffic control and aviation regulation, but she is also a telecoms expert. What the hell is happening here? I'm completely lost. To promote more independence, we have also appointed a non-executive director as chairman of this committee, and she is a former compliance officer at an airport, expert in air traffic control and aviation. But there was Mr. Asif as our non-executive director, correct? He is not the chairman of audit committee. This is some other person. I'm completely lost. And then these 3 experienced network engineers, they are not directors. They are employees. So how can these three engineers become the member of audit committee? Audit committee can only have non-executive directors. So these three guys are, um, so I will write audit committee, and three employees are member, and chairman is outsider, which is, that means not a board member, and no finance and audit expert. Three are engineers and one is a compliance officer with background in air traffic control and aviation and chef and air hostess. My God. What about a risk committee? And do you have nominations or RAM committees? Interesting. Java. DCS has no separate board appointed risk remuneration or nomination committee. Very good. All strategic and long-term planning initiatives are initiated and decided upon by the main board, led by myself, and of course our management structure and culture is such that we embed risk management through having that close control over staff that I mentioned to you previously. As for salary, we strongly believe that all board members should be on a fixed salary to encourage them to take a longer term perspective rather than rewarding them with short term performance bonus. Aha. What's wrong in this? What's wrong in having all board directors be on fixed salary? What's wrong in that? So as I said, that executive directors, we never give them fixed salary. We link a certain portion of their remuneration to performance, short term and long term. Okay. Also, NED should not get fixed salary, they get fixed fees. Okay. And then no uh, other committees like nomination, remuneration, and risk committee. All right. Too many problems, which is good for us. As far as recruitment, remuneration, and succession planning is concerned, I personally approve and manage all middle to senior staff recruitment and staff promotions. So there is no need for formal induction processes for our directors or senior management. What the hell? This is again, he's just running it as a one man family thing. How can he approve his own salary? You see? Okay. So this one is again saying no committees. You, now that you are a listed company, how do you report to and engage with your shareholders, particularly institutional shareholders? DCS does not have any special governance or reporting structures to engage with shareholders, including institutional shareholders. But of course, we do meet our minimum company law obligations in relating to statutory reporting to shareholders, shareholder democracy, voting, and other constitutional rights. Okay, so they do not have any additional procedures, but they do meet with the basic minimum legal requirement, so I cannot challenge that, right? Additional structures may be voluntarily options, but as long as they are complying with the minimum legal obligations to shareholders and stakeholders, I think I cannot challenge that information. All right, so I'm just moving on. That was all very useful, Mr. P. But what I would like now is more data on the overall performance of DCS and a copy of the October board report, which I know was considering the strategic option. I think we are done. So, guys and girls, tell me, did you enjoy this question? Were you able to identify weaknesses with the corporate governance structure of DCS? Perfect. So how do we draft this answer? Again, I would just read the requirement first to make the opening sentence and see whether any format is required. Explain the weakness of the current governance structure, recommending how they should be addressed. Very simple. So I would say following are the weaknesses of the current governance structure along with recommendations. Okay, very simple opening sentence. Now I will make a quick table. Okay, and then I would say, okay, very simple. And then weakness number one. Okay, so what's weakness number one? Split role, CEO and chairman. Let me read these lines, okay? These lines. I am acting as CEO and chairman, giving me sufficient control and take strong leadership over the board. Okay. So maybe I would like to give heading first. If you think it's appropriate, give a heading. Uh, okay. And then you say, currently, Mr. P or whatever his name is both the chairman and the CEO. Now remember the professional skills, Mark? Remember the professional skills? So I need to adopt a negative tone of drafting. I repeat, I need to say negative things. This is not right. This gives you bloody hell power. Da da da. So instead of saying in sweet language, I would just adopt a negative thing. Currently, Mr. P is both the chairman and CEO. This seems incorrect and against the corporate governance requirements. And why is it? What's wrong with this? This uh, gives excessive powers to one person, and I would like to pick some wording from here. Uh, Sufficient control and strong leadership and he/she can adopt a strong uh, leadership style without being challenged. That's it. Do you understand? So I explained the fact and then I just explained that what's wrong in that. Now recommendation. I'm not going to draft recommendation, but I'll just explain to you. I will just say that the role of chairman and CEO should be split in order to create segregation of duty and to enable the chairman to review and scrutinize performance of the CEO and make sure that excessive powers are not vested in one person. Okay, do you understand how? Couple of things. Did you see the format? Always use a tabular format whenever the question says weaknesses and recommendation. Second thing is, because it is skepticism, I am deliberately trying to use a negative tone. I can also explain this in a normal tone, but I deliberately switched my tone to a negative tone, like I'm pissed off, because if you don't adopt a negative tone, you will lose 3 precious marks on skepticism skills. So you have to be very, very mindful. Whenever you see skepticism, you need to switch gears and adopt a negative tone. Okay. So now you understand the approach. We'll just quickly discuss what other things. NED. You can say that currently there is only one NED on the board, and also that NED does not seem to be independent because he is the executive director of one of our largest suppliers, and due to this his independence is impaired or questionable. Yes, Hamza. Is there a need to write impact? Yes, that's what I'm doing. I'm first highlighting the weakness and then I'm saying due to this, what's happening. So I'm trying to cover the impact as well because 1 point is 3 marks, including recommendation. So I'm trying to give a juicy answer. Okay. So under recommendation, we will say that number one, there has to be sufficient number of NEDs, preferably 50% or more. Yes, everything is tabular, Abdullah. And then we will say that also we have to make sure that all the NEDs should be independent. That's it. One female, I know it's a weakness, it's a point of diversity, but I don't know whether it is a requirement of corporate governance. So I will skip this point because I need to restrict myself for 5 points. Remember? So first I will give big points. So I talked about chairman CEO role split. I talked about NED. I need 3 more points or 2 more points, and then I would think of female director. NED is not independent. I covered that. Audit committees. Now I can come up with lots of issues or weaknesses in audit committee, right? We will say that number one, the audit committee does not consist of any director, leave alone non-executive director. In fact, they just have one non-executive director, and in an audit committee, you need to have at least three people, three non-executives. So for sure, they are not complying with the corporate governance requirement here. Three employees are members of of audit committee, and those are engineers, and the committee is headed by an outsider, and she is a compliance officer. None of the members have any expertise in finance and audit. It could be couple of paragraphs under this head in this point, right? And then recommendation that the audit committee should comprise of only board directors, non-executive directors of the board, and at least one of them should have expertise in finance and audit. And then we can talk about no other committees, right? Point number 4. And then we can talk about fixed salaries. That's weakness number 5. So we are done. Please do not write more than 5 weaknesses, because the marks allocation will not allow you. Please remember this. Nowadays, the examiner is giving excessive information, and he's trying to push you in a trap where, because there is excessive information, you try to squeeze in everything, and then you overrun the time and the lines and the marks. So please stick to the planning. We decided that for 14 marks, maximum number of points is 5. So stick with 5. Anything which is extra than 5, I don't give a damn about it. I will just wrap up my answer and move on. Huda is saying, can we write about audit committee all in one point? Yes, you can, but then it has to be nicely presented. Maybe you can give 2 paragraphs, or you can split audit committee point into 2 weaknesses. Sir, can we mention weakness and impact in 1 paragraph? Yes, you can. And if you want, you can have 2 paragraphs under the weakness column. Right, got it? Good question. Excellent. I am so glad. Today, I have a feeling that you guys are on top of things. I can now feel maybe today you guys have some Red Bull or something, or maybe now this is the 4th day and now you are getting the hang of it. I don't know, and I don't care. As long as you guys are getting on top of it, I am so happy. Right, Muhammad Mainuddin has said that a new technical article is released on November 2019, which is getting connected to the Internet of Things, IoT. Please, if you could have a little discussion on that. Thank you so much. Definitely, I will talk about IoT maybe tonight or tomorrow. Okay, because it is an article, let's talk about it for a couple of minutes. Move on. Let's move on. Last topic for tonight: internal control systems. Okay, now I can talk about the theoretical side of internal control systems, but in SBL, nothing theoretical will come. Okay, in SBL, every attempt there is a question on internal control, but the question was something like identify the weaknesses and suggest solutions. So I will just spend 2 minutes on the theory side, and then we will move to weaknesses. So what is internal controls? So every company, they face risks, right? Every company, they face certain risks. And then what do we do in order to protect ourselves against those risks? We implement internal controls. So what is the main role of internal controls? To protect or safeguard the company from all the risks, and to make sure that as a company we achieve our objectives. And then let me extend that a little bit. And to check whether internal controls are working properly or not, we have got internal audit. So the role of internal audit is to make sure that the internal controls are working effectively, right? And then one level more. And how do we ensure that internal audit is working effectively or not? Audit committee. So I just simplified it for you in order for you to understand and memorize that all organizations face risks. In order to mitigate those risks, the management, they implement internal controls. This could be financial controls, operational controls, legal controls. All sort of controls are systems, and policies and procedures are implemented. And then who checks whether these internal controls are working properly? It's the job of internal audit. And who checks whether internal audit is working properly? It is the board, and specifically the audit committee, which monitors the performance of internal audit. And also, if I may add, internal audit also, it is the some kind of role of external audit as well, to make sure that controls are working, right? So both these guys are then monitored by audit committee. Easy. So with this background in mind, what are internal controls? Internal controls systems comprises of the whole network of systems established in an organization to provide reasonable assurance that organizational objectives will be achieved and that the assets will be safeguarded. What are the purpose or importance or advantage of internal controls? Achievement of objective, orderly conduct of business, assurance to the board, mitigate risk, safeguarding of assets, completeness and accuracy of accounting records, accurate and timely financial reporting, prevention of fraud, compliance with laws, all this standard thing. Okay, so you must remember 5 or 6 out of this list. I see some questions. Yes, internal control is monitoring and evaluation tool, correct? Right. Laiba is saying, sir, in previous question, as there were 5 points, can each point be covered in a separate paragraph? Of course. Each point is a separate paragraph with its own recommendation in a tabular format. Deficiencies is same as risk. I don't know in what context you're asking, Simita. All right. Now, this is something important. Internal control weakness and recommendations. This is how in SBL the questions are asked. So I already discussed this, use tabular format. Hmm? So whenever you receive a question on identifying weakness and recommendation, we use a tabular format as we just did in the previous question. If there is weakness and recommendation, then we assume 3 marks for 1 point. And sometimes the examiner also specifically says in the question, identify the weakness and then identify and discuss the impacts and then suggest recommendations. So in that case, since the examiner has specifically asked for 3 information, then you will give a table with 3 columns, and then for this kind of a requirement you assume 4 marks for 1 point, because you have to identify the weakness and then you need to talk about the implications or impact separately as another column, and then about recommendation. So it's worth 4 points. Now when you need to do 3 columns, you might face some difficulty on your answer sheet because there is not enough space available. So whenever you require 3 columns, then you turn your page into landscape. Do you understand? So instead of doing in a portrait style, portrait style is a rectangular like this, and a landscape is something like this, horizontal. Portrait is vertical, landscape is horizontal. So you turn your answer sheet, make it into landscape, and then you draw your 3 column table. This will give you space. There is nothing wrong in doing it in a landscape manner. Okay. In case there are 3 columns, then it's better that you do on a landscape format. So how do you handle questions on internal control weakness and recommendations? It's very simple. If you know the weakness, you just turn it around and it will become the recommendation. So for example, if you feel that in this today's webinar the weakness was that I just talked about theoretical topics and I did not do questions. So what's the recommendation then? Exactly the opposite. I will turn around the weakness. I would say then recommendation would be that I should spend more time doing the questions and less time in theories. So it's a very simple technique. If you know the internal control weakness, you just turn it around, and in most of the time it will automatically become the recommendation. For example, there is no remuneration committee. That's a weakness. So what's the recommendation? There should be a remuneration committee. As simple as this. Okay, so let's do a good question on internal control weaknesses. Uh, we will do September 2018 co-fold construction, question number 3A and B. I hate sometimes when this stupid highlighter stops working. So September 2018 co-fold construction. I think we did the introduction yesterday. This was we did this question for the project initiation document. Remember? So this is basically, let me quickly recall, it's a construction is a listed company. CC's core business is to undertake oh, wait a second. Okay. It's a road construction company. To date, it has not covered done any work in Betal. It's another country, but a new opportunity has arisen for the biggest project. Okay, this was the background. Question number 3. It is now July 2022, 3 months after CC began construction of the new road in Betel. Sorry. 3 months after the road construction began in Betel. Okay, you are Pat Singh, a consultant employed by CC's board. I like the name Pat Singh. Diversity, huh? Pat Singh, Patrick Singh. Interesting. You see, this ACCA, they select names. Even if you see the names of the board in the previous question, it demonstrated some diversity. Very interesting. Right, you have just left the emergency meeting regarding the incident at the construction site. and are responding to the request made by CC's chairman, Imena, at the end of the meeting. So there was this emergency meeting of the board. I don't like the sound of it. Emergency meeting regarding the incident at the construction site. Oh my God. Something bad has happened, and the board had to meet on an emergency basis, prepare a confidential memo for Imena, chairman, which discusses the ethical and reputational concerns raised at the meeting. Okay. Skepticism skills. So we need to look for ethical and reputational concern, but actually this question I have selected for was for part B. So part A I would give you as homework. Most today's now focus is part B. A summary for CC's board to review assessing the control weaknesses. Assessing the control weaknesses discussed at the emergency meeting, stating for each control its consequence and recommendation. 14 marks. Professional skills for evaluation skills. Oh my God. Let me read. Professional skills marks are available for demonstrating evaluation skills. How? By basing explanations of significant control weakness on the information provided and recommending appropriate improvements. Okay. So how can we score more? By basing explanations of control weaknesses and recommending appropriate improvements. So automatically we will be covering pros and cons. The negative things we will be talking about is in the weakness, and positive things will be covered under recommendations. Okay. 14 plus 4, how many marks? Let's see how many marks it is. 18 marks. How many marks per point? Think before you shoot. How many marks per point? 4 marks. Very good. And what's the logic for that? We have to give 3 things. We have to mention weakness. We have to mention for each weakness, consequence, recommendation. 4 marks. And if we follow 4 marks, how many points? 4 for the 16, 5 points. So I will talk about 5 weaknesses. I will talk nicely. I will properly link with the case. I will give some impacts and then talk about recommendations. Okay, let's read. Transcript of an emergency meeting on 20th July at CC's head office following protests against construction of the new road in Beetle. So there were some protests. Present, chief executive was present, chairman was there, risk manager was there, and that's me. Okay, I'm the nice consultant here. Very good. That's me. The meeting began at 10 a.m. Burton, who's Burton? Burton is CEO. Burton opened the meeting by playing the following clip from Beatles news program about the break-in from earlier that morning. News clip. Presenter. Two protesters were seriously injured last night after they broke into one of the construction sites for the new road through the Insardi Mountains. The break-in is an escalation of the recent protests against the new road. Protesters have been unhappy that they have not been able to meet with Burton v. CC's chief executive. So what's their issue? They were unhappy that they were not able to meet the CEO. Our reporter Iris is outside the site. Iris, what can you tell us about the break-in and the injuries? So what are the key messages? Seriously injured, unable to meet CEO. Okay. Reporter. It appears that a number of protesters created a diversion outside this entrance while the two security staff on the site investigated. Other protesters broke in elsewhere, close to where a break-in was attempted last week. On that occasion, the security staff spotted the protesters and prevented access. This time, however, two protesters got in. It seemed that one collided with a van driven by an employee. Wow. The other protester was apprehended by another CC employee and was subsequently taken away by police. Whoa. So two of the protesters, they were able to enter the website unauthorized. There were just two guards, and then one of the protesters got hit by a van internally. Whoa. Okay. Van accident. What's next? Now, no representative from CC has made any comment about last night's events, and we have not been able to speak with any of the employees involved. However, as he was led away, the protester who was arrested shouted out about the protester injured by the van. They ran him over. The van deliberately went straight for him and ran him over. Oh my God. This is nasty. This is complicated. Uh, okay. No comments by management. All right. So this was the reporting clip. Okay. Now, Burton. Who was Burton? Burton was CEO. Button is saying, CEO, I thought that showing the news report was the best way to brief you on what happened, although Alan had focused out more since. Okay. Alan, who's Alan? The risk manager. I have spoken to our employees and the staff from Sholin Security, the security firm in Beetle, which we use. It seems that they both went to deal with the protesters at the main entrance. Okay. Imena. Imena is the chairman. Were there only two security staff on site? Yes. The contract only states that the security post should be manned at all times. Interesting. So, only two guards. Okay. And it looks to me that they were not sufficient because there were just only two guards at the entrance, and they were focusing on the people at the entrance, and then two guys broke into it. So I think two guards are not sufficient. I just highlighted them. Alan, yes, the contract only states that the security post should be manned at all times. Imena, the news report mentioned an attempted break-in last week. Were we told about it? The security staff said that they reported it to their managers, but no one from Sholin Security appears to have contacted us. Oh my God. So there was a break in attempt last week, and the board or the management was not aware. This is a weakness. Burton, what more do we know about what happened once the protesters got in? Allen, the protesters who was injured ran across an unlit service road and the van collided with him. Imena, should the area have been lit better? Allen, apparently lighting was one of the things picked up by Lee, our health and safety manager, when he visited the site 2 months ago. Staff said that the lighting was going to be fixed before internal audits visit planned for next month. So there was no lighting, and the health and safety manager has bought that 2 months ago, but it was never fixed, and they were waiting for internal audit. Stupids. Lighting issue. Why isn't Lee here? Who is Lee? Lee is the health and safety manager. Lee's been off sick for last 6 weeks. We'll have to get a temporary replacement in now to fill the gap caused by Lee's absence. So Lee is absent for last 6 weeks, but nobody has done anything. Did Lee submit his report on the site before he went sick? I did receive it, but the points were generally minor. We had so much else to discuss at the board meetings recently that I haven't had a chance to report on health and safety. So do you understand that the health and safety report, the board was not able to look at the health and safety report because they don't have time. Okay. What more do we know about the protester who collided with the van? I haven't spoken to the van driver yet, but I have spoken to the security guard who chased the protester. He didn't see the collision, only the aftermath. How about the protester who claimed to have seen his friend being run over? You told me earlier, I'm not sure whether he would have been able to see clearly what happened as the lighting was so poor. He had also fallen over on a patch of oil which hadn't been mopped up. This was why the security guard was able to catch him. Oh my God. So again, the second guy who was caught actually slipped and fell over a patch of oil which was not mopped up. Imena, you told me, sorry, let me make a note. Oil, oil slip. Imena, you told me earlier, Burton, that our lawyers have advised us not to make any statement that we are responsible and that the police and health and safety authorities will be looking at the site over the next few days. That's correct. Of course, we shouldn't admit to any responsibility for the injuries. Uh-huh. I will be flying to Beetle this afternoon. When I get there, I'll issue a statement to the press saying that we regret the injuries, but protesters who trespasses on building sites have only themselves to blame. We'll ensure that the sites are tied up, lights fully on, etc. I'll also speak to the staff there and make sure they're all saying the same thing. They'll get a hardship bonus. because of all the stress they had last night. I'm fed up with these protesters and the way they are disrupting this contract. My God. So I don't like the CEO. He's saying we shouldn't admit. We will ensure that the sites are tidied up, lights fully on. I will make sure that the staff they say the same thing. I will give them hardship bonus. All these are CEO's things. Burton and Allen left the meeting. Emina and Pat continue a private conversation. Emina is the chairman, I think, and Pat is me. Okay. Emina, I am worried about what Burton will say and do when he is in Beetle and his attitude on the issues we discussed. Can you send me a memo before Burton goes to Beetle, setting out your views? You can be as frank as you like. I shall keep the memo confidential. I'm also not happy generally with how risks have been managed and controls have been operating. I'd like you to draft me a summary of control weaknesses and how they should have been remedied. I want the board to see quickly and clearly what the problems are and what we must do. That's it. Okay, so some interesting story going on our construction website. It started with some TV news, and then our CEO and the risk managers they gave their point of view, some weaknesses, some future plans on how we will handle. Okay, requirement. Let's look at B. A summary of CC's board to review assessing the control weaknesses discussed at the meeting, stating for each control weakness its consequence and recommendation, significant evaluation skills. Okay, we need to target for 5 weaknesses, and if not 5, at least 4 weaknesses. Yes, Sachal, I agree with you. I will come to that in a bit. So, are you able to identify some weaknesses? Seriously injured, there was a van accident, only 2 guards. Were there only 2 guards? Yes, the contract only states that the security post should be manned at all times. So, that's weakness number 1. Okay, only 2 guards. And what's the impact? So if the format would be a columnar format, I want to see 3 columns. First column will be weakness, second would be impact, third would be recommendation. The first weakness is only 2 guards were there to man the entry post. What's the impact? The impact is that 2 guards are less, and if they are engaged at the entrance, then there are no other guards keeping an eye on the rest of the site. What's the recommendation? That the number of guards should be increased to a sufficient level of quantity so that all entry points and risky areas are properly guarded throughout 24/7. Second weakness, not aware of last week report attempt. So the security company whom we have outsourced to, they did not inform us of a break-in attempt. That's very strange. That's not good. As a board of director, as management, it is our right to be aware of any bad incident, especially involving the public. So another weakness is that the security company did not inform the management. What's the impact? The impact is that the management will be unaware of such incidents, and this may lead to reputational issue or legal issues if we are unaware, and we will not be able to address the weakness. Recommendation: the security company should be strictly instructed that any negative incident should be immediately reported to the management. Very good. Lighting, insufficient lighting, issue number 3. And then what's the impact of insufficient lighting? And you just repeat that incident, that in which it said, there was a collision and it was an unlight road, and the driver did not see this guy and he hit the guy and he was seriously injured. Recommendation: very simple. There should be sufficient lighting all over the project site. And then this health and safety manager is off for last 6 weeks and nothing has been done. What's the impact? Health and safety activities, reviews, and monitoring, uh, they will not be done if the health and safety manager is sick, and whatever he has reported in his previous reports, they were not implemented because there was no follow-up from this guy because he was sick. And recommendation should be that a temporary this role should be allocated to someone, because this is a serious role and it cannot be left uh, without someone looking at it. No time in the board. So what's the impact? That the board is unable to give sufficient time to risk management issues. Okay. And the suggestion would be that there should be a separate risk committee. I believe somewhere it was mentioned in some other exhibit that they don't have a separate risk committee. It's part of the audit committee. So we should say that they should have a separate risk committee where they can focus on risk management and give more time, because the board has limited time. Oil spillage. So now you understand the approach. So can I ask one question? So we identified 4, 5, 6 weaknesses, and we talked about the impact of those weaknesses, and we give recommendations, right? Can I ask one question? Now, which technical article or technical knowledge or which book or which chapter taught you all these things? So if there's insufficient lighting, isn't that common sense? If there's oil spillage, isn't that common sense? So this question was 90% common sense. As Sachal says, the points are generic. And what's the marks? What's the marks? How much marks? Now, 18 marks. Can you imagine 18 marks for this part? And it does not pertain to any model, any technical chapter, any revision kit, any book, any technical article. My God. Common sense is not common in common public. Okay, Muhammad Hunain. So listen, guys and girls, this is what I'm trying to explain. SBL, half the paper is like this. Half the paper is like this. Okay. 50% to 60%, 50 to 60 marks out of 100 will be common sense questions. Even you can take the 20 marks for professional skills. So if you include 20 professional skills and such generic questions, this will cover 60, 65, 70% of the paper. So please do not waste your limited time on 40 models or technical articles or going through the kits or the chapters. Please don't do that. You are focusing on the wrong thing. Now, these common sense questions, as Hunan said, common sense is not common. These common sense questions, how can we practice for them? The only one and only way is we do all the practice questions. We all do all the questions, because 50%, 60% of each paper consists of something like this. So if we do the practice, uh, we will become experts in this. So please just chill. Okay, just chill. Just be smart. Just be cunning. I don't want hard work. I want smart work. Now, if you have reached to the SBL level, this is a core paper. If you have passed your papers and you have reached SBL level, I can bet you are not stupid. You do have that level of intelligence. Otherwise, you would have never reached to this stage. So you guys are not stupid, right? You have that intelligence, you have that smartness. It's just that you haven't done this for any paper in the past. Nothing is similar to SBL so far. So just be confident and just be smart and common sense. Okay, so do not underestimate yourself. Be confident. 18 marks I just showed you, and this is not a specimen paper. This is actual September 2018 paper, the first SBL paper ever. Okay, and I just showed you. Even if you look at the question number 2A, draft a memo which discusses the ethical and reputational concerns raised at the meeting. 12 marks. Were you able to spot some ethical and reputational things? Here, the protesters were unable to meet the CEO. Isn't that a reputational thing? If the protesters have an issue and they are trying to meet the CEO and CEO is just not giving them time, that's a reputational issue for the company. And all this happened because this Mr. Bloody CEO did not meet the protesters. And then no comments by management. And then how about this one? We shouldn't admit any responsibility. Why not? There was no light on your premises. There was oil spillage on your premises. So if you are not admitting your fault, isn't that unethical? And mm, we will ensure that the site is tied up and lights fully on. Oh my God. You're trying to, wrap everything up before the police and the press comes in. Isn't that unethical? And then he wants to speak to the staff to make sure that they're all saying the same thing. Probably it means that he will tell them to lie. Unethical. And then he will give them some bonus. Oh my God, he's trying to bribe them. Unethical. Influencing. Absolutely. Now, tell me which chapter, which technical article, which book, which revision kit is this coming from? Isn't this common sense? This is what I'm trying to prove. that, you know, 18 marks plus this one was, I think, 10 marks or 12 marks. 12 marks plus 18 marks, 18, 20, 28, 30 marks is just common sense. And I can show you more questions from the same paper. 50% is common sense. So please keep it simple. The thing which I feel from your comments, you are complicating things. You are fearing this paper. Don't fear this paper. Kick this paper. Kick this paper. Don't fear it. Kick it. Okay. Get on top of it. Keep it simple, basic, logical, and you will pass. That's it. That's the only formula. Time management, formats, professional skills, and some basic intelligent answers. Screw the models. Okay? And I think you can feel the pain and the sincerity in my tone. What I'm saying, I mean it. All right. All right. So let's cool off. Okay. So today we have done our target. Couple of things. So many people are asking me for drafted answers or suggested solutions, right? I do have drafted answers or suggested solutions, but they are in bullet form. Those are just pointers. I did not sit and draft proper answers. What I thought was I will just mention all the important bullet points which the examiner expects you to cover under that article or under that question. So if you want, I can share the suggested answers, but that would be in bullet points. It's just to guide you which points, which lines, which sentences, which facts from the exhibits you need to touch upon. Okay. And but of course in SBL your drafting style will not be bullet points. The handout which I am giving might is in bullet points, but that's not the format to be used in the exam. Is that okay? Okay. The second thing is, um, I saw one comment that, sir, can you do one question on presentation slide? Yeah, I think we should. So tomorrow I will show you how to prepare a presentation slide. So, okay, I will consider that tomorrow. Okay, now what's the plan for tomorrow? Tomorrow is our last class. Tomorrow I will just do one topic, which is risk management. And again, it's a topic which is tested in almost every attempt. It's important. We will do one question on risk management. And then I would like to spend the last 1 or 1.5 hour in recapping everything. Okay, I will recap the exam techniques in one go because we have been talking about exam techniques in piecemeal. Tomorrow I will recap exam techniques. I will recap professional skills. I will recap all the formats. I will actually show you all the formats. Um, and I would also give a list of important topics and models which you need to focus on for March attempt. Okay, and in between I would try to do one presentation slide question and something about IoT, Internet of Things. Okay, anything else? Commercial acumen skill I can just discuss, but I will talk about it tomorrow. Heat map tomorrow. Heat map is tomorrow. Heat map is risk management. The new technical article. Okay, let me see. Let me see. Look here. Look here. IoT, huh? Is that what you said? It is a very famous word. Internet of Things. Let's look at it. No, Baba Ji, I'm talking about IoT. IoT, short for Internet of Things. What is IoT? Simple definition. IoT is short for Internet of Things. The Internet of Things refers to the ever growing network of physical objects that features an IP address of Internet connectivity and the communication that occurs between these objects and other Internet enabled devices. I don't like it. IoT devices can be used to monitor and control the mechanical, electrical. No, this is too technical for you guys. Okay, I'll try to cover IoT tomorrow in simple layman terms. Contextual change, value chain. We will not have time for these things tomorrow. Okay, value chain was tested in last attempt. I do not expect context of change. Let's see how it goes tomorrow. If we have time, I will definitely cover these additional requests. Okay, so we are now about to end. We have slightly overrun today as usual. So today, honestly, I felt that you guys were able to, control the case. You were able to identify. I can see marked improvement on day 4. I was worried in the first few days, but today my confidence is up. And I am sure that your confidence for case handling is building up as well. Right? So let's not slow down the momentum. Tomorrow we will kick it together. So until then, have a good night, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Make sure that you do not miss tomorrow. In fact, please pass on the messages to your friends, your circle, your colleague. Tomorrow being the last class, we will be recapping lots of things we discussed over the last 5 days. So it will be a power pack session. Thank you and good night.